Welcome, Deep Dive English community. Have you ever felt, stuck? Like you know exactly what you should be doing to improve things, maybe get fitter, start that side project, just feel more on top of things, but somehow actually making those changes stick feels, well, impossible sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. It's a super common feeling, something pretty much everyone grapples with.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why today we're diving deep into a book that's honestly shifted how millions think about growth and change. It's James Clear's Atomic Habits.
A genuine game changer. And look, we know you're busy, schedules are packed. So think of this deep dive as your shortcut. We're going to pull out the absolute core ideas, the really practical strategies from the book.
Right. We'll give you the essence, the main takeaways, so you can grasp what makes the system so revolutionary without having to read cover to cover right now.
Exactly. We're aiming to be your guides, basically, helping you understand not just what the book says, but why it works, and crucially, how you might start using these ideas, like today.
That's the plan. We want to distill the most fundamental stuff about how habits actually form and how to change them. So you walk away feeling not just informed, but genuinely equipped with some actionable knowledge.
Think of it as maybe getting that first 1% better just by tuning in.
I like that. We'll share real examples, touch on the psychology behind it all, and hopefully give you a clear path forward. So let's get into it. Let's unpack Atomic Habits. Okay, first things first, that title, Atomic Habits. We think of atoms as like the basic building blocks, right? Tiny things. How does Clear use that idea for habits? What does atomic really mean in this context?
That's the perfect place to start because, yeah, atomic is loaded with meaning here. He uses it in two key ways. First, just like you said, it means an extremely small amount of a thing, the irreducible unit of something bigger.
So like those tiny actions we barely notice. Doing one push-up instead of zero. Or maybe meditating for just 60 seconds.
Exactly. Things that seem almost insignificant on their own. You do one push-up, you don't suddenly feel like a bodybuilder, right?
Not at all. Feels like almost nothing.
But that's where the second meaning comes in, and this is where it gets really interesting. Atomic also means the source of immense energy or power, like nuclear energy, unleashed from something tiny.
Ah, okay. So it's not just small, it's powerfully small. Small things that build up to something huge.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that these tiny, seemingly minor daily choices are the fundamental units of your life. They're the building blocks. And when they accumulate, when they compound, they have this incredible transformative power.
That makes a lot more sense. It's
Yeah.
not just about thinking small, it's about understanding the latent power within those small actions.
Right, and this connects directly to that concept. Clear
Wait.
talks about the aggregation of marginal gains.
Oh yeah, the British cycling team story. That one really stuck with me. Can you remind us how that worked? They weren't exactly champions for a long time, were they?
Champions. They were the opposite. For almost 100 years, British cycling was, well, mediocre is putting it kindly. They had won just one Olympic gold medal since 1908.
Wow, one in a century.
Yeah. And get this, their performance was so consistently poor that one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe actually refused to sell bikes to the team. They were worried it would damage their brand reputation if British cyclists were seen using their equipment.
No way, that's brutal. So how on earth did they turn that ship around?
Well, in 2003, they brought in Dave Brailsford as their new performance director, and he had this philosophy, this commitment he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
Marginal gains. So tiny improvements.
Tiny improvements. His idea was basically find every single tiny thing that goes into riding a bike and improve each element by just 1%. Not looking for some massive breakthrough, just tiny tweaks everywhere.
And not just the obvious stuff, right? Like the bike frame or the gears.
Oh, way beyond that. Of course, they looked at the bike seats for better comfort, the tires for better grip, the ergonomics of the handlebars, but they went much, much further.
Wait, what?
They tested different massage gels to see which led to faster muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders the absolute best way to wash their hands to minimize catching colds or infections.
Hand washing.
Seriously. Reduces days lost to illness, right? They analyzed the pillow that offered the best sleep for each rider and brought them on the road. They even, famously, painted the inside of the team support truck white.
White! Why white?
So the mechanics could spot tiny specks of dust more easily. Dust that could potentially get into the finely tuned bike mechanics and impair performance. It was that level of detail, improving absolutely everything by just that tiny 1% margin.
That's incredible, that relentless focus on the small stuff, and the results were pretty dramatic, weren't they?
Dramatic is an understatement. Within just 5 years, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team absolutely dominated. They won something like 60% of the gold medals available in cycling events.
60% from practically zero.
And they didn't stop there. They went on to win multiple Tour de France titles with British riders for the first time ever. Brailsford's 1% strategy completely transformed them from laughingstocks to world leaders.
It's such a powerful illustration of how those tiny gains compound. So bringing it back to us, the non-Olympic cyclists,
Yeah.
what's the takeaway? How does this apply to our everyday habits?
It means habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. It's exactly the same principle. Just like money multiplies with compound interest, the effects of your habits, good or bad, multiply over time.
So that 1% better each day, it really adds up.
It adds up astronomically. Clear does the math. If you get just 1% better each day for a year, you'll end up nearly 37 times better by the time you're done. 37 times from a tiny daily improvement.
That's hard to even wrap your head around. 37 times better.
Conversely, though, if you get 1% worse each day, maybe you slip into slightly poorer eating habits, skip that short walk, procrastinate a little more after a year, that decline compounds too. You'll end up close to zero.
Wow. So the downside is just as dramatic.
Exactly. It highlights how critical those small daily choices are. They seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they determine the difference between who you are and who you could be.
It reminds me of that airplane analogy he uses, the slight change in course.
That's a great one. Imagine a plane flying from Los Angeles to New York. If the pilot adjusts the nose just 3.5 degrees south, a tiny, almost imperceptible shift at takeoff the plane won't land in New York.
Where does it end up?
Washington, D.C., hundreds miles off course. That tiny initial adjustment, magnified over the distance across the country, leads to a completely different destination. Our habits are like that plane's heading. Small adjustments now lead to vastly different outcomes later.
That really puts it into perspective. Success isn't about massive overnight transformations. It's the product of those consistent daily habits.
Exactly. It's the accumulation of those atomic habits. And it works for everything: your health, your skills, your relationships, your knowledge.
And I guess the bad habits creep in the same way, compounding negatively.
Precisely. Good habits make time your ally. Think about productivity. Small improvements in focus or workflow compound into significant career gains. Or knowledge reading regularly doesn't just teach you facts, it changes how you think, connecting ideas in new ways.
Like Warren Buffett reading all day.
Right. But bad habits make time your enemy. Small daily stresses, a poor diet, consistently negative self-talk. They seem minor day to day, but they compound into serious health problems, mental blocks, strained relationships. Habits are definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah, they can build you up or cut you down. And the tricky part is often you don't see the results right away, do you? You put in the effort, but nothing seems to change.
Ah, yes. That's a huge point. Claire calls this the valley of disappointment. It's that frustrating period where you're putting in the work, you're being consistent with your new habit, but the results you expect just aren't showing up yet.
And that's where most people give up, I imagine.
Exactly. Because we expect progress to be linear. We think, I've been doing this for a month, I should see X result. But progress is rarely linear, especially at the start. It's often exponential, meaning the biggest gains come later.
So that early effort isn't wasted, even if it feels like it.
Not at all. It's being stored. It's building potential. Think of it like an ice cube in a room that's slowly warming up. From 25 degrees Fahrenheit to 26, 27, up to 31 degrees. Nothing seems to be happening to the ice cube. It's still solid.
Right.
But all that energy is being absorbed. Then, at 32 degrees, the breakthrough happens. It starts to melt. All the work done between 25 and 31 degrees wasn't wasted. It was just building up the potential for that change.
That's the plateau of latent potential.
Exactly. You work and work with no visible change, and then suddenly, often surprisingly, you break through. People on the outside might see it as overnight success, but it's the result of all that previous effort finally reaching a critical threshold.
So the key is trusting the process, even when you're stuck in that valley and can't see the peak yet.
Trusting the process and having the patience to stick with it. Understanding that the work is compounding, even when the results aren't immediately obvious.
This really connects to another core idea in the book, the whole concept of focusing on systems over goals.
Yes, this is fundamental to Clear's approach. Goals are okay, he says. They're good for setting a direction, like, I want to run a marathon. That gives you a target. But systems are what actually make progress. The system is your training schedule, your diet, your stretching routine, how you lay out your running clothes the night before. Goals set the direction. Systems are the process for getting there.
And focusing too much on the goal can actually be counterproductive.
He argues it can, for several reasons. First, winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Every team wants to win the championship. Every applicant wants the job. The goal doesn't differentiate them.
It's the system they use to pursue the goal that matters.
Precisely. Second, achieving a goal is often just a momentary change. You run the marathon, great. But if you don't have a sustainable system for running, you might just stop running altogether afterward. True change comes from fixing the underlying systems that produce the results.
So if you have a bad system, even achieving a goal won't fix things long term, like crash dieting versus building healthy eating habits.
Exactly like that. Third, goals can restrict your happiness. You fall into the trap of thinking, I'll be happy when I achieve X. Satisfaction is always deferred to the future. But with a systems mindset, you can derive satisfaction anytime your system is running. You fall in love with the process itself.
That's a big mental shift, finding joy in the daily practice, not just the eventual outcome.
It is. And finally, goals can be at odds with long-term progress. Once the goal is achieved, the motivation often vanishes. The marathon runner stops training. The author finishes the book and stops writing. This leads to that yo-yo effect.
So what's the alternative? Goalless thinking.
Kind of. It's about focusing on continuous improvement, on endlessly refining your system. You don't rise to the level of your goals, Clear says, you fall to the level of your systems. The atomic habits are the components of that system, driving that compound growth.
Okay, so if the system is the key, and maybe our current systems aren't working, how do we start changing them? It feels like a big question. Where do we even begin?
It is a big question, and Clear breaks it down really nicely. He talks about 3 layers of behavior change. Think of them like concentric circle.
Okay, layers. What are they?
The outermost layer is outcome change. This is about changing your results. Losing weight, publishing a book, winning a competition. It's focused on the what.
That's where most people start, right? Focusing on the result they want.
Exactly. The middle layer is process change. This is about changing your habits and systems. Implementing a new gym routine, developing a daily writing habit, organizing your workflow. This is focused on the how.
Makes sense. Outcome is the what, process is the how. What's the deepest layer?
The deepest layer, the core, is identity change. This is about changing your beliefs, your self-image, your worldview, your judgments about yourself and others. This is focused on the who you believe you are.
Identity. So changing who we think we are, that sounds profound and maybe difficult.
It sounds big, but Clear argues it's actually the most effective place to start for lasting change. Most people try to change from the outside in. They focus on the outcome they want. But the most powerful change happens from the inside out, starting with the identity you want to embody.
Why is that so much more powerful? Can you give an example?
Because behavior that doesn't align with your core identity usually won't last. If you see yourself as someone who isn't a morning person, getting up early consistently is going to feel like a constant battle against yourself. Your actions are fighting your beliefs.
Right, you're swimming upstream against your own self-image.
Exactly. Clear uses the example of Brian Clark, who bit his nails for years. He tried stopping with willpower, maybe focused on the outcome of having nice nails or the process of not biting, but it didn't stick long term.
So what finally worked?
His wife made him get a manicure. For the first time, his nails looked genuinely good, and he felt proud of them. He started seeing himself differently, maybe subconsciously at first, as someone who takes care of their nails.
Ah, so his identity shifted.
Precisely. And once that identity shifted, the behavior followed naturally. Biting his nails became incongruent with who he now believed himself to be. He stopped, not through brute force, but because his identity changed.
That's fascinating. So it's less about, I want to read more books, outcome, or I will read for 30 minutes, process, and more about, I want to become a reader, identity.
Exactly. It's shifting from I want to run a marathon to I want to become a runner, or I want to learn an instrument to I want to become a musician.
And how do we become that person? How does that identity shift actually happen?
Through proof. Every action you take is like a vote for the type of person you wish to become. When you choose to walk instead of drive, you cast a vote for I am a healthy person. When you write one sentence, you cast a vote for I am a writer.
So the habits themselves build the identity.
Yes, they aren't just about getting results. They are actively reinforcing your desired identity. Each small win, each atomic habit performed, proves to yourself that you are that kind of person. Over time, these votes accumulate, the evidence builds, and your self-image begins to change fundamentally.
That reframes habits completely. They're not just tasks to check off, they're acts of identity formation.
Exactly. It's a much deeper, more sustainable way to think about change. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are.
Okay, so identity is key. But how do the actual mechanics of a habit work? How does a behavior become automatic?
Clear lays out a really simple but powerful four-step model. It's the backbone of every single habit. Think of it as a loop.
A loop. Okay, what are the steps?
Step one is the cue. This is the trigger. It's the bit of information that predicts a reward and tells your brain to initiate a behavior. It could be the notification sound on your phone, the smell of coffee brewing, seeing your running shoes by the door.
So the cue is the starting pistol. What's next?
Step two is the craving. This is the motivation, the driving force behind the habit. And here's a key point. You don't crave the habit itself, like you don't crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the state it delivers.
The feeling.
Exactly. The relief from stress, the nicotine hit, the feeling of social connection, the satisfaction of a clean inbox. The craving is about the change in your internal state that the habit promises.
That makes sense. The cue triggers the desire for a feeling. Then what?
Step three is the response. This is the actual habit you perform, the action or thought. Whether you act on the craving depends on motivation, but also, crucially, on how much effort or friction is involved. If it's too hard, you won't do it, even if you want the reward.
So the response is the action itself. And finally,
Step four is the reward. The reward is the end goal of the habit. It satisfies the craving, delivering that feeling you wanted, and it also teaches your brain, hey, that sequence cue creating response worked out well. Let's remember that for next time.
so the reward closes the loop and reinforces the whole pattern. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Precisely. It's a continuous feedback loop. The cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving and gets associated with the cue. And boom, a habit is formed and strengthened over time.
Okay, that model seems clear. And this loop, this is what leads to the 4 laws of behavior change, right? The practical rules for actually building good habits and breaking bad ones.
Exactly. The 4 laws are derived directly from these 4 steps. They are designed to consciously manipulate each stage of the habit loop to make good habits easier and bad habits harder.
What are the 4 laws again?
They are 1, make it obvious, 2, make it attractive, 3, make it easy, and 4, make it satisfying.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Got it. And each one corresponds to a step in the loop.
You got it. Make it obvious relates to the cue. Make it attractive relates to the craving. Make it easy relates to the response. And make it satisfying relates to the reward.
And presumably, there are inversions for breaking bad habits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To break a bad habit, you invert the laws. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. It's a beautifully symmetrical framework.
Okay, let's break down Law 1. Make it obvious. This is about the cue, right? Making the trigger for a good habit really stand out. How do we do that?
Well, the very first step, before you can even make something obvious, is just becoming aware. So many of our habits run on autopilot. We don't even realize we're doing them half the time.
Like scrolling your phone without thinking or grabbing a snack when you walk into the kitchen.
Exactly. So Clear suggests starting with something called the Habbits scorecard. Just take a piece of paper or a note on your phone and list out your daily habits as you notice them, going down the list and marking each one as positive, plus, negative, or neutral.
Just the act of noticing and labeling them.
Just noticing. It brings them out of the subconscious and into conscious awareness. He also mentions that pointing and calling technique used by Japanese train operators.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier. They say things out loud.
Right. Signal is green. Platform clear. They verbalize the action or observation. It seems simple, maybe even silly, but it drastically reduces errors because it forces conscious awareness at critical moments. You can do the same, verbalize the habit you want to start, or the bad one you want to avoid, as you encounter the cue.
Interesting. So once we're aware, how do we intentionally make the cues for good habits more obvious?
There are a few really effective strategies. One of those powerful is using implementation intentions. This is about being super specific about when and where you're going to perform a habit.
Not just I'll exercise more, but something concrete.
Exactly. The formula is, I will behavior at time in location. And so instead of I'll meditate, it becomes I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my living room.
That leaves no room for ambiguity. Your brain knows exactly what to do, when, and where.
Precisely. Studies show this specificity dramatically increases follow-through. People are far more likely to vote, get a flu shot, or exercise when they've decided on a specific time and place beforehand. It primes the brain.
Okay, implementation intentions. What else?
Habit stacking. This is genius. You leverage an existing habit that's already automatic to trigger a new one. The formula is, after current habit, I will increase new habit.
So you piggyback the new habit onto one that's already established?
You got it. Like, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute, or after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. The completion of the current habit becomes the cue for the next one.
That seems really practical because the cue is already built into your routine.
It is. You just need to choose the right anchor point, the right existing habit, and be specific about the new habit you're stacking onto it.
Makes sense. So implementation intentions, habit stacking. What's the third strategy?
Environment design. This one is huge. We tend to think our habits are solely about motivation or willpower, but our environment plays an enormous role. We are heavily influenced by the cues around us.
Like the hospital cafeteria example with the water bottles you mentioned.
Exactly. They didn't tell anyone to drink more water. They just made the water bottles more visible, more obvious, near the cash registers. And water sales jumped significantly while soda sales dropped, just because the cues changed.
So we can redesign our own environments to make good habits more likely.
Absolutely. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow? Want to eat healthier? Put fruit in a bowl on the counter, not hidden in the fridge drawer? Want to practice guitar? Take it out of the case and put it on a stand in the middle of the living room. Make the cues for your desired habits the most obvious things in your environment.
Okay, make the good cues obvious. So the inversion for breaking bad habits is make it invisible.
Exactly. Reduce exposure to the cues that trigger your bad habits. If you waste too much time on your phone, leave it in another room when you need to focus. If you eat too many cookies, don't keep them in the house in the first place.
Out of sight, out of mind. Literally.
Pretty much. Remember that Vietnam War heroin study? Soldiers who were addicted in Vietnam, surrounded by cues, stress, availability, peer influence, largely quit when they came home to a completely different environment, free from those triggers. The cues vanished.
That really underscores that self-control isn't just about willpower. It's often about smart environment design.
Massively. Disciplined people aren't necessarily heroes of willpower. They're often just better at structuring their lives to avoid tempting situations in the first place. It's easier to avoid the cue than to resist the craving once it's triggered. So make the cues for bad habits invisible.
All right, law 2. Make it attractive. This tackles the craving stage. Once the cue is there, how do we make ourselves actually want to do the good habit, especially if it's difficult or maybe not immediately fun?
Yeah, this is all about harnessing our brain's reward system. We're wired to seek pleasure and rewards. Clear talks about supernormal stimuli here.
Supernormal stimuli, what are those?
They're exaggerated versions of reality that trigger a stronger response than the real thing. Like those fake bird eggs scientists use. Birds will prefer sitting on a giant, brightly colored fake egg over their own normal ones because it's an amplified cue for nurture this.
Okay, so an exaggerated trigger gets an exaggerated response. How does that apply to us?
Well, think about junk food. Food companies engineer products with the perfect bliss point of salt, sugar, and fat combinations rarely found in nature. These are supernormal stimuli for our brains, which evolved to crave calorie-dense foods. They hijack our reward pathways, making them incredibly attractive, even addictive.
Social media too, maybe? With the constant notifications and likes.
Definitely. Highly engineered to be attractive, delivering frequent, unpredictable little dopamine hits. And dopamine is key here. We often think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, released after we get a reward.
Yeah, that's the common understanding.
But Clear emphasizes that dopamine is released much more strongly during the anticipation of a reward. It's the wanting chemical more than the liking chemical. That surge of dopamine before you eat the cake or check your phone or place the bet, that's what drives the craving and motivates the action.
Ah, so if we can make the anticipation of a good habit more appealing, we can boost our motivation to do it.
Exactly. And one clever way to do that is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. Sounds intriguing. How does that work?
You link an action you want to do with an action you need to do. You basically make the reward for the needed habit contingent on performing it alongside something you already enjoy.
Like the student who rigged his exercise bike to only play Netflix if he was pedaling.
That's the perfect example.
Yeah.
He bundled the want, watching Netflix, with the need, exercising.
Yeah.
You could do it simply too. Only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're doing chores, or only get your fancy coffee on days you go to the gym.
Yeah.
You make the attractive thing the reward for doing the necessary thing.
That's clever, pairing the pleasure with the effort. What else makes habits attractive?
The power of our social norms. We are deeply influenced by the tribes we belong to, our family, friends, colleagues, community. We have a powerful, innate desire to fit in and gain approval.
So we tend to adopt the habits of the groups we're in.
Absolutely. If everyone in your circle smokes, you're more likely to smoke. If everyone runs marathons, you're more likely to see running as normal, even attractive. Think of the Polgar sisters, raised in that chess-obsessed household. Chess wasn't just a game, it was the cultural norm, highly praised and valued, became incredibly attractive to them.
So joining a group where your desired behavior is the norm is a powerful strategy.
Hugely powerful. Want to get fit? Join a running club or a CrossFit gym. Want to read more? Join a book club. When the desired behavior is the shared identity of the group, we are runners, we are readers, it becomes much more attractive to maintain that habit to remain part of the tribe.
Makes sense. Leverage that need to belong.
Mm.
Okay, so the inversion for breaking bad habits is make it unattractive.
Right. This is often about reframing your mindset, highlighting the downsides of a bad habit rather than the perceived benefits. Instead of thinking, smoking relaxes me, you might reframe it as smoking is poisoning my lungs and making me anxious about my health.
Shift the association from positive to negative?
Exactly. Alan Carr's famous easy way to stop smoking method largely works on this principle. It systematically dismantles the perceived benefits of smoking until it seems genuinely unattractive, offering absolutely nothing positive. You can also reframe the benefits of avoiding a bad habit. Instead of, I have to skip dessert, think, I get to prioritize my long-term health and feel more energetic. Shifting the perspective makes the unattractive choice feel like a burden lifted, an opportunity gained.
Okay, on to law 3.
Mm.
Make it easy. This feels intuitive. Of course, we do things that are easy. But how do we apply this to habits that inherently feel, well, hard, like exercising or studying?
This law is all about reducing friction. Our brains are wired for efficiency. We naturally gravitate towards the path of least resistance. It's called the law of least effort. So the goal here is to make your desired habits require as little effort as possible.
Less friction, more action.
Exactly. And Clear makes an important distinction here between motion and action. Motion is planning, strategizing, learning, like researching the best workout plan or outlining an article. It feels productive, but it doesn't actually produce a result.
Whereas action is actually doing the thing.
Right. Action is doing the workout, writing the article. Action delivers an outcome. We often get stuck in motion because it feels safer. It allows us to feel like we're making progress without the risk of failure that comes with actually doing the thing.
Guilty as charged. So how do we move from motion to action more easily?
By ruthlessly reducing friction. Make the good habit incredibly convenient. If you want to go to the gym after work, choose a gym that's literally on your route home, not one you have to go out of your way for. Want to drink more water? Keep a water bottle on your desk at all times.
Remove the little barriers that make it easy to say, maybe later.
Precisely. Think about successful products and services. Amazon's one-click ordering, Netflix autoplaying the next episode, meal kit deliveries. They all succeed by eliminating steps, reducing friction, making the desired action incredibly easy. We need to do the same for our own habits.
That makes sense. And this leads to the 2-minute rule, doesn't it? Which sounds like a powerful friction reducer.
It's incredibly powerful, especially for getting started. The rule is, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
2 minutes. That's it.
That's it. The idea isn't to achieve your ultimate goal in 2 minutes. It's to master the art of showing up. Your goal might be read more, but your 2-minute starting habit is read 1 page. Your goal might be run a marathon, but your 2-minute habit is put on my running shoes.
So you make the starting ritual so easy, it's almost impossible not to do it?
Exactly. You standardize before you optimize. You build the habit of showing up first. That reader Clear mentioned who lost over 100 pounds, he started by committing to going to the gym for just 5 minutes each day. He wasn't allowed to stay longer at first. He just had to show up. Once showing up became automatic, the rest followed more easily.
Master the first 2 minutes. That seems achievable. What about preparing in advance?
That's crucial too. Prime the environment. This means setting things up beforehand to make the future action easy. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Chop vegetables for tomorrow's healthy lunch tonight. Put your book and glasses on your nightstand.
So you're removing future friction now.
Yes. You're making the path to the good habit as smooth as possible. Resetting the room after you use it, preparing your workspace for the next day. These small actions dramatically decrease the activation energy required to start the desired behavior when the time comes.
Okay, make good habits easy. So the inversion for bad habits is make it difficult.
You got it. Increase the friction associated with the bad habit. Make it a hassle to perform.
Like unplugging the TV and hiding the remote.
Exactly. Or deleting social media apps from your phone, forcing you to log in through a browser each time, adding extra steps. Victor Hugo, facing that deadline for The Hunchback of Notre Dame, had his assistant lock away all his clothes except a shawl.
Right, so he literally couldn't go outside.
He created massive friction for the bad habit, leaving his study, and made the good habit, writing, the easiest option available. These are called commitment devices. They are choices you make in the present to lock in better behavior in the future.
Like prepaying for a class or using software that blocks distracting websites.
Precisely. Or even automating things. The invention of the cash register made it much harder for employees to steal it, increase the friction for dishonesty. You want to structure your environment and your choices so that doing the bad habit requires significant, noticeable effort. That friction is often enough to deter you.
Okay, the final law. Make it satisfying. This brings us back to the reward part of the loop. How do we ensure that doing a good habit feels good, especially when the real benefits might be far off in the future?
This is critical because our brains are wired to repeat behaviors that provide immediate satisfaction. Pleasure is the signal that says, hey, that was good, do it again.
But so many good habits like saving money or exercising don't feel immediately rewarding, do they? The payoff is delayed.
Exactly, and that's the core challenge. We evolved in what Clear calls an immediate return environment. Our ancestors hunted or gathered, and the reward, food, or consequence, danger, was usually immediate. But we now live in a delayed return environment.
Where the rewards for studying, working hard, or investing are months or years away.
Right. Our brains haven't fully caught up. We still have a strong bias towards immediate gratification. This time inconsistency explains why it's so easy to choose the immediate pleasure of junk food over the long-term benefit of health, or the immediate relief of procrastination over the delayed reward of finishing a project.
So the brain prioritizes now over later.
Heavily. Which leads to Clear's cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. To make a good habit stick, you need to find a way to make it immediately satisfying.
How can we do that for habits with delayed rewards? Add some kind of artificial immediate pleasure.
Exactly. Find ways to give yourself an immediate win. Let's say you're trying to save money by cutting back on impulse buys. Every time you resist buying something frivolous, immediately transfer the amount you saved into a special savings account. Name something exciting, like Dream Vacation Fund.
So you get an immediate dopamine hit from seeing that fund grow, reinforcing the habit of not spending.
Precisely. You're making the avoidance immediately satisfying. Or use something simple like the paperclip strategy. Have 2 jars. Start with 100 paperclips in one. Every time you complete your desired habit, make a sales call, do push-ups, write a paragraph, move 1 paperclip to the other jar.
So you get immediate visual evidence of your progress. That little click of the paperclip is a small, satisfying reward.
It is. It makes progress tangible and immediate, which leads naturally to habit tracking.
Keeping a log or checking off a calendar.
Yes. Tracking is powerful for several reasons. It makes the habit obvious, the tracker reminds you. It makes it attractive. Seeing your progress motivates you. And crucially, it makes it satisfying. Checking off the box or seeing a streak feels good.
That feeling of not wanting to break the chain is really motivating.
Incredibly motivating. It provides immediate visual proof that you're casting votes for your desired identity. I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Seeing that streak reinforces the identity.
But what if you do miss a day? Life happens. Does that ruin everything?
That's a common fear. And Clear has a simple, powerful rule for it. Never miss twice. Missing one day is an anomaly, an accident. It happens. The key is to get back on track immediately the next day.
Because missing twice can be the start of a new negative pattern.
Exactly. The first mistake rarely ruins you. It's the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. So even if you have a terrible day, just do something. Do the 2-minute version of your habit. Put on your running shoes, even if you don't run. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for not breaking the streak entirely. Avoid putting up a 0.
Never miss twice. That feels more manageable than aiming for perfect consistency. But is there a downside to tracking? Can we get too obsessed with the numbers?
Absolutely. That's where Goodhart's law comes in. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. If you focus only on the number on the scale for weight loss, you might start doing unhealthy things just to make the number go down, losing sight of actual health.
So the metric becomes the goal instead of the underlying purpose.
Right. Tracking should serve the larger goal and identity, not become the sole focus. Pay attention to qualitative measures too. How do you feel? Do you have more energy? Are you sleeping better? Balance the quantitative tracking with the qualitative experience.
Okay, make good habits satisfying. So the inversion is make it unsatisfying for bad habits.
You got it. Make the consequences of a bad habit immediate and painful, though hopefully not too painful. The more immediate the cost, the faster we learn. Think about speeding tickets or fines they make, breaking the rules immediately unsatisfying financially.
So we need to create immediate negative consequences for our own bad habits.
Yes, one way is using a habit contract. This is a formal agreement, maybe written down, where you state your commitment to avoid a bad habit and specify the punishment if you fail. And crucially, you involve an accountability partner.
Someone who will enforce the punishment.
Exactly. Or at least someone you'll have to report your failure to. Knowing someone else is watching, knowing you'll have to face the social cost of admitting you messed up, can be a powerful deterrent. That entrepreneur, Brian Harris, had to pay his trainer and wear embarrassing clothes if he didn't log his food. The immediate potential pain and embarrassment made skipping the task highly unsatisfying.
Leverage social pressure and immediate consequences to make the bad habit feel bad right now.
That's the essence of it. Make the immediate consequence unavoidable and undesirable.
Okay, we've covered the 4 laws, which provide a really solid foundation. But the book also touches on some more advanced ideas for really excelling long term. What about talent and genetics? How much do they matter in habit formation?
Clear argues they matter quite a bit, but perhaps not in the way we usually think. It's less about genes determining your destiny and more about them determining your areas of opportunity. Habits are simply easier to build and maintain when they align with your natural inclinations and abilities.
So play to your strengths.
Exactly. He uses the great example of Michael Phelps, the swimmer, versus Hicham El Guerrouj, the runner. Phelps has the ideal swimmer's body, long torso, huge wingspan. El Guerrouj is short and light, perfect for distance running. If they switched sports, neither would be elite. Genes didn't guarantee their success, but they pointed them towards the game where their odds were best.
So self-awareness about your natural tendencies is key. Understanding what comes easier to you.
Absolutely. And this connects to personality, too. Our genes influence broad personality traits like the Big Five: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Someone naturally high in agreeableness might find it easier and more rewarding to build habits around maintaining social connections, like sending thank you notes. Someone lower in conscientiousness might need to rely more heavily on strategies like environment design and commitment devices to stick with disciplined habits.
Work with your nature, not constantly fight against it.
Precisely. Ask yourself, what feels like fun to me but looks like work to others? What makes me lose track of time? These often point towards activities where you have a natural advantage or inclination.
But what if you feel like you don't have an obvious best game? What if you're just average at a lot of things?
Then you can create your own game. Combine your skills. Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator, is the perfect example. He admits he wasn't the best artist or the funniest comedian, but he combined his okay drawing skills, his pretty good sense of humor, and his strong background in the corporate world to create a unique niche where he had little competition.
So if you can't win by being better, win by being different. Combine your skills uniquely.
Exactly. Find a specific niche where your particular combination of skills gives you an advantage.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about motivation? Specifically, staying motivated when things inevitably get, well, boring, after the initial excitement wears off.
Boredom. Clear calls it perhaps the greatest villain on the quest for self-improvement. This is where the Goldilocks rule comes in. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities.
Not too hard, not too easy.
Exactly. Just manageable difficulty. If it's too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you get discouraged and give up. You need tasks that stretch you just enough to stay engaged, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed. Think of tennis. You enjoy playing against someone roughly your skill level, right? A pro would be discouraging. A total beginner would be boring.
Finding that sweet spot of challenge.
Right. And this is where professionals differ from amateurs. Amateurs often stop when they get bored. Professionals understand that mastery requires pushing through the boredom of repetitive practice,
They fall in love with the boredom.
or at least they tolerate it. They stick to the schedule even when they don't feel like it. They embrace the grind because they know that's where the real progress happens, those tiny incremental improvements. They show up even when it's monotonous.
So success isn't just about enthusiasm, it's about discipline through the inevitable boredom.
A huge part of it, yes.
Okay, last point on advanced tactics. How do we avoid getting complacent once a habit does become automatic? How do we make sure we're still improving and not just going through the motions?
That's a great question. Because habits, while essential, aren't enough for true mastery. Once a behavior is automatic, you can actually become less sensitive to feedback, and performance can plateau or even decline slightly.
So automation isn't the final step.
Not for mastery. You need a system for reflection and review. You need to periodically check in, assess your performance, and look for areas of improvement. Pat Riley, the Lakers coach, did this with his career best effort program.
Right. Tracking those small improvements and unsung hero plays.
Exactly. It kept players focused on continuous improvement, even when they were already champions. Clear himself does an annual review and monthly report cards to assess his habits, track progress, and make adjustments.
So it's about building in deliberate practice and feedback loops even after the habit is established.
Precisely. It ensures you're not just mindlessly repeating, but actively refining. It keeps you conscious and engaged in the process of improvement, preventing stagnation. It allows you to keep tweaking the system.
Wow. We've covered so much ground today. From why tiny atomic changes are so powerful, through the psychology of the habit loop, the 4 laws, identity shifts, and even these advanced tactics, it really feels like Atomic Habits offers a complete system.
It really does. It's not just a collection of tips. It's a framework for understanding how behavior works and how to systematically change it. Those 4 laws make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. They really give you levers to pull no matter what habit you're trying to build or break.
If you're forgetting the habit, make the cue more obvious. If you lack motivation, make the craving more attractive. If it feels too hard, make the response easier. If you're not sticking with it, make the reward more satisfying.
You got it. And remembering that it's not about one giant leap, but about thousands of those tiny 1% improvements stacking up over time. It's about building better systems because ultimately you fall to the level of your systems.
That's such a powerful closing thought. So for everyone listening, maybe think about one thing from this deep dive that resonated. Where could you apply one of these laws, even in a tiny way, starting today?
Yeah, maybe where can you make a good habit just a tiny bit more obvious? Or a bad habit a tiny bit more difficult? Where can you find a small, immediate satisfaction for an effort you're making? Those little tweaks can be the start of something big. Your actions really do reveal your priorities.
A fantastic challenge for us all. Thank you so much for breaking down Atomic Habits with us today. I hope this conversation gives everyone some concrete ideas for building the systems that support the life they want.
My pleasure. And if you want to dive even deeper, James Clear's website, jamescore.com, is full of great articles and resources that build on these ideas.
Excellent. We'll look forward to our next deep dive with all of you right here on Deep Dive English. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep building those amazing atomic habits.